an unconstitutional hoax.
Aloha and welcome to Fight Club. That's right. The first rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club, but we break all the fucking rules around here. Before we can get to Fight Club, though, I got to introduce my friend, my partner, my co-host, Boogie Bumper. Boogie, how's it going, brother?
Come over here, you young whippersnapper. It's good. I'm good. I'm very good. I've been looking forward to this. This is my first time streaming in about 2 weeks as well.
Right.
So you've got me coming off the long break, James. I've had a couple of weeks on the bench. It's not going to be a Patriots fall over in the first round of the playoffs tonight. We're going all the way. If I could just correct you, the first correction of the night, James. The first rule of Fight Club is you take the link and share it out to as many people as possible. You tell everybody about Fight Club. That's the first rule about Fight Club. Tell as many people as possible. Right. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you. But by the way, we haven't spoken. Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, James. Well done.
Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, and to all of our fans out there, Happy New Year and Merry Christmas. Glad that you're with us for one more show. I do want to make a quick announcement before we even get to the meat of this, and we will talk more about it. But it just dawned on me that I should probably cover this before Boogie gets to the clips. Is that Director Mike is with his crew out on the border, and they're actually performing a function right now at the behest of DHS. And let me assure everyone that the border is pretty damn secure right now. And that's how serious our country is taking what the threats are right now. So there are eyeballs all over the place. We've got literally anything you can expect, from cameras to drones to satellites to helicopters. Every eyeball that they can do, undercover agents. We're literally got, and I don't want to put this and make it seem like it's clickbaity, but we have eyeballs on Middle Easterners right now trying to cross the border. So I'm just letting you know right now that they're down there, they're working, they're performing their mission. Our country is doing everything it can to protect you. So just so you know, that's what's happening right now.
Good. Well, seeing as American lives are being put at risk on American soil, James, any Hellfire missiles ready to go into Mexico at this point, or
hopefully
like
a few. I'm hopeful that they get a few going over there to the cartels. Like that's what I hope. I mean,
we'll get into that.
Yep,
we'll get into that. There's lots to get through. We thought we've been hamming it up a little bit over the weekend. So thank you for joining us. But we do have some points of contention, I think, and I've been thinking about this for a couple of days. What's the best way to start? And I thought maybe the most productive way to start would be with what we agree on rather than what we disagree on, because we got the whole show to talk about what we disagree on. But before I get to that, can I ask you a question, a genuine question? Have you ever heard of somebody in history who's known as the good Sir James Douglas?
I don't think so. The title Sir, I know very few of them.
Okay, the good Sir James Douglas. Let me tell you about this guy. He was a hero in medieval Britain, right? He was a liberator. He's a man who rose up against the illegal occupation of the English, and he fought bravely against a better equipped enemy, James. You might know him by his English name. His English name is the Black Douglas. Yes, the Scotch is named after him. And in English folklore, he's considered to be a terrorist and a savage. He would raid English towns, behead his enemies, and set fire to crops, leaving women and children to starve in the winter. Good guy, bad guy. If you think the reason that I'm telling you this story is to defend a terrorist, then I'm sorry, you're too stupid for this show tonight. You are officially too dumb to be here. The reason I'm telling you this story is not to defend a terrorist. The reason I'm telling you this story is to illustrate how thinking that your job is to kill bad guys, although righteous, may ultimately leave you blinded to how history and other people may view your actions, rightly or wrongly. Okay? I've been accused of a lot of things over the last few days. Terrorist sympathizer is my personal favorite because I have, like, a Democrat. I've been accused of being a Democrat. That shows to me that I can put out there. I've put out there around 300 hours of material, James, just last year, mocking Democrats mercilessly, attacking the corporate media mercilessly. And based off one tweet, you can get people get in touch with you and say that you are the very thing that you have been attacking. And me personally, that gets me hard. You know me.
Yeah, exactly.
I always enjoy it when people mischaracterize me because I don't go out of my way to prove them wrong. So let's talk about some of the things we agree on. Soleimani was a bad guy, yes or no?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Iran has a great deal of influence in Iraq right now, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Countries have a right to defend themselves.
Absolutely.
An embassy is sovereign soil.
Absolutely.
Okay. The Iraqi military base that the contractor was killed on was not American sovereign soil.
To be honest, I don't know, but I'll agree with you just because I know you wouldn't put it out there if it wasn't true.
Okay. Let me bring this up for you. US contractor killed, military rocket injured in rocket attack on Iraqi military base. Not American military base, not American embassy, an Iraqi military base. So can we agree that an Iraqi military base, even if US forces happen to be on it at the time, does not instantly become the property of the United States government? Is that a fair thing to say?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay. The airport where Soleimani was killed is not American sovereign soil.
Correct. I think.
Okay. The USA was invited to be, the USA is in Iraq at the behest of the Iraqi government?
Slightly. They're actually there.
Okay. Officially?
Officially, they're there under the authority of the Prime Minister of Iraq. They're under executive branch permission.
Okay. The Iran-linked militias are there under the same authorization. Yes or no?
I don't believe that's true, but it could be.
I can tell you that it is.
Okay.
Because what happened, right, after ISIS was attacking Iraq, they formed a coalition between these, Iranian-backed militias. The United States was involved. What the current Prime Minister, who's actually in the process of stepping down to be replaced by somebody else, what his plan was to bring the Iranian-backed militias under the control of the Iraqi armed forces. He wanted to bring them in permanently to be part of Iraq's, general security operation. So that's why the Iranian-backed militias are there in the first place. After fighting ISIS, he wanted to bring them under control. Many people would say unsuccessfully, right, because Iran has so much power in the region already. James, here's another thing we can agree on. There's a growing nationalist movement in Iraq right now.
I'm not sure that I do agree with that because I understand I look at this in a completely different lens.
Okay.
The biggest problem here is that you have to take away nationality from that region and start with religious sects. What's important to understand is that it's the Shia and the Shiites that are predominant in both countries. And so the joining force between these countries is their religion, not their nationalities. So I put it in a different way.
That's okay. I'm glad you do, because right now there's a conversation surrounding this where younger people, especially in Iraq, are actually calling for an end to sectarian rule. So let me bring up this article for you. Yes, we're using the Washington Post. An uprising in Iraq is the broadest in decades. It's posing an alarming threat to Baghdad and Tehran. From Baghdad to the Shiite Muslim shrine of Karbala and further south, Iraqis are pushing for a revolution. This is from November last year, by the way. They fill central squares to sing and dance from daybreak and face down riot police when night falls. Iraq's streets are no stranger to power struggles. They've been a stage for sectarian conflict and for the Islamic State's emergence. But the crowds are different this time. And so is the threat now posed by the largest grassroots movement in Iraq's modern history. A new generation raised in the shadow of the US-led invasion is rising, and politicians from Baghdad to Tehran have been caught on the back foot. To the generation of the 60s and 70s reads a sign flying high above Baghdad's central square: "We have more courage than you." Although the unrest is confined mostly to Shiite areas, and while we're just for convenience sake, if we could just point out, a lot of people are classing this as just a Muslim thing. So, look, the main reason behind, let me take a step back here. One of the main reasons why I wanted to do this show this way tonight and have this discussion, this open discussion with everybody else, James and I have been talking behind the scenes. By the way, we've sent a couple of points back and forward to each other as well. One of the main reasons here is we've gone through all of the things we agree on. We agree that he's a bad guy. We agree that Iran has influence in Iraq. But if you want to call me a terrorist sympathizer, then fine. I don't particularly care. What I am against is false realities and false paradigms being permeated for the sake of convenience. That is something that I have always been against on this show and my own show. Now, your reasons for believing a certain thing, your motivation, your incentive for believing a certain thing and doing a certain thing might be fine, might be fair enough. But I won't accept a false reality being presented to me as the justification for your belief in it. And I'm going to take the unpopular. Somebody accused me the other day, James, of taking the easy way out with this. No, ladies and gentlemen, it would be far easier for me to just grab a flag and start waving it and say, "Yay, dead terrorist." That's the easy way.
That's right.
I'm the one that's getting accused of being a terrorist now. That's not the easy way out. Right?
My favorite one for me is that I'm accused of being a bloodthirsty American. That's the best one.
Bloodthirsty imperialist, yes. So, for the sake of history, Saddam Hussein was a Sunni Muslim, right? Not a Shia Muslim. The Shiite Muslims are actually the minority in the Middle Eastern world. It's about 65-35, 70-30, okay? The Shia's stronghold has always been Iran, okay? So the Sunni minority in Iraq ruled over the Shia majority in Iraq. Now, when you think of, James is quite right when he talks about historically we've been looking at these things through sex, because many people who study the Middle East will tell you that these lines that were drawn at the fall of the Ottoman Empire are completely and utterly irrelevant to most of the people living in that part of the world. They don't recognize national borders, because we're talking about cities and lands and territories that are far older than the lines that were drawn on the map in the aftermath of World War I. So people don't respect it over there, right? So Saddam Hussein led the Sunni minority who ruled over the Shia majority. Okay? So it's not just all Muslim. Sunni and Shia hate each other more than you hate Muslims.
That's right.
That's another thing we can agree on, right?
Right.
So here's another one for you. Iran's supreme leader backs petrol price rises as protests spread. Ayatollah Al-Khamenei says hooligans, James, guilty of sabotage are Iran's enemies. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah, has backed 50% petrol price increases that have sparked protests across Iran, claiming opponents of the Islamic Republic and foreign enemies were guilty of sabotage. There are also moves from Iranian parliamentarians to reverse the rise amid fears protests could spiral out of control, as they have in Iraq and Lebanon. So this rising nationalist fervour, James, that is occurring in Iraq, okay, just say you don't believe it. Just say, I don't see it, I don't believe it, I don't think it's a thing. another thing we can agree on. There are 16-year-old boys who are walking around Baghdad right now whose entire reality has only been knowing that the United States government is stationed in their city.
Okay.
Okay. As they walk around Iraq, there's certain buildings that they can't go near. There's certain roads they can't go down because there's checkpoints. Can't go near this part of town. That's a green zone. That's the United States zone there. How do you think that that kind of atmosphere would permeate after nearly 2 decades for people who have been growing? Again, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Don't take the moralist view here. It seems entirely logical to me that there would be a nationalist kind of movement that would grow out of conditions like that. And in fact, back in 2003 and 2004, when the Iraq War, the latest one, happened again, this was one of the main concerns of people who were against the Iraq War, that if you get there and you stay there and you occupy it, you will create a whole new generation of people to be against you. Right?
Yeah,
fair?
That's fair. That's definitely fair. I wouldn't agree with I wouldn't agree with the nationalist sentiment, but I would agree that you would definitely create resentment amongst your citizenry to a degree. What that percentage is, whatever. It doesn't matter whether it's 1%, 100%. There's a percentage there that's going to have some resentment for people, that just occupying their space, whatever. However they see it. They're going to see it as invaders. It'd be the same if Australia came in and, occupied 4 blocks in San Francisco for, 2 decades. At some point, those Americans that live there in that city are going to be like, what the fuck? Why can't I go in my 4 blocks in my city? So I understand the point.
Okay. Let me take you back to October last year, James. A couple of quotes from Donald Trump, El Presidente. There he is. We're getting out. Let someone else fight over this long blood-stained land. The job of our military is not to police the world. Other nations must step up and do their fair share. I am committed to pursuing a different course, one that leads to victory for America. That was in October last year. Okay.
Yep.
So let me address some of the claims, because I'm already getting people in the chat saying, so what, are you against killing terrorists? No, see, you're part of the problem. You're part of the problem. This fake binary option of unless everybody is with me, then you must be against me. This is what creates the kind of hyperpolarization that you see now. If you think that questioning things about this means that I'm not in favor of dead terrorists, then you are gravely mistaken. If you don't understand the point I make now, then stick with it, and maybe you will by the end. If you don't understand the point by the end, then you probably never will. Aristotle once said, James, and I'm sorry to go back into philosophy for this, but Aristotle once said that the sign of intelligence is being able to entertain an idea without adopting it. So if you could, ladies and gentlemen, for the next hour and a half or so, do try. Do try to entertain an idea. It doesn't mean that you have to agree with it. It doesn't mean that you have to adopt it.
Now,
Okay.
In fairness, I love the other side of the chat that's going on. James is coming across weak. James isn't fighting. It's too calm. He hasn't said anything to fight about yet. It's not even. We're remember, this is the start of things we agree upon. So I've only taken issue with him calling one thing nationalist. Everything else is the shit we agree on. So I'm sorry if I'm too weak, but fuck you.
that ought to fix it. All right. Now, see, people in the chat just regurgitating bad things that Iran has done and this general has done. Yeah, we know. We know that. Okay. Well, actually, there's a difference. The intelligence agencies have told us, and we believe them. That's a difference to actually knowing. But that's semantics, right? Yeah, we know Iran used child soldiers. We know that this guy killed killed thousands of people. But that in of itself doesn't change what we're talking about here, and the broader point what we're talking about here. Because there's a lot of bad guys on planet Earth, right? There's a lot of bad dudes who have done a lot of bad things. Let me talk about one of these claims, James. Fuck around and find out.
Yes.
This is one that's been going around for a few days. I think you'll agree with fuck around and find out. Great.
Yep.
Horrific details emerge in killing of 9 US citizens, including 6 children in ambush in Mexico. Fuck around and find out, James. When's that? When are we sending missiles and the special forces into Mexico to take out the Mexican drug cartels? Fuck around and find out.
I actually have the answer to that, and I've actually given it on my other shows. So we actually were not, I told everybody, we're not launching missiles into Mexico. That's not going to happen. But what is going to happen is special forces are going to go in and take the motherfuckers out in the drug cartel. We were completely set, all parameters set to do it. William Barr himself went over to Manuel Obrador Lopez himself and told him, here we are. I have all the legal documentation lined up. We're coming. Now, the Manuel Obrador literally begged us, and he begged us in public as well, not to come in and invade his country. He begged us not to do this, that he would help, that he would play ball, and that he would help us get rid of these people. So I'm not really breaking news when I say that we already have people going in to get these fuckers, okay? And in fact, it's right now already led to publicly one of the police chiefs being taken out, one of the corrupted government officials being taken out as how this happened. And this will lead to other arrests and other people being taken out. Like, it's not, I understand what your point is too, though, is that we didn't immediately go in and bomb Mexico. I get that, but that's likely never to happen. But what is going to happen is we're going to take them out. And literally the president set all the pieces in motion for that to occur. And the Mexican president has been working with the United States to accomplish the mission.
Okay, so if you don't need to send Hellfire missiles to take out a target, why would you do it to Soleimani in Iran? Could it possibly be for theatrics? Because why not send a covert hit team to do it instead? Why not do it quietly and silently, like the CIA of old?
Yeah, because one of the things that's different here with President Trump, and I predicted this and said this was going to happen, we're not going to get boots on the ground. It's going to be very rare for us to actually send in a hit team like that, because of the dangers inherent in doing it, especially in a country like Iraq or Iran. And the targeting didn't take time.
Sorry to interrupt, but false paradigm. You already have boots on the ground. That's who was being attacked.
No.
Well, the Baghdad embassy is a fortress that contains how many hundred troops? You've seen
they're not the right
troops that were taken. The 3,500 troops that were taken out of Syria are now based in West Iraq. You know that, right?
Yeah, look, I'm talking about invasion force type things, but here's what the point you're missing. Special forces, when they do a mission, all missions, okay, this is all of our crews, they don't just get on a plane instantaneously and go and assassinate someone. They plan the thing, they put the thing in motion, they know where a target's going to be. In this particular case, they did not have time to wait for a quote-unquote hit team to get prepped in country, know the target, have the terrain, have the escape, have the ingress, egress, all those things set up. They didn't have the time. But what they did have the time was to take a missile that was already in air, already in country, and drop it on his ass. There's a huge difference in how you send in a hit team. Now, if you wanted to send a hit team in and you knew where Soleimani was going to be in a day, in a week, in a month, that's a different story. It's a completely different mission. It's a completely different operation. In this particular case, just lined up by the information we have in public space, there's no way in hell we could have got a special forces team in there in time to take a kill shot. The only way to handle this correctly was through the air power of the United States.
Okay, but yesterday I was being told that he wasn't hiding, that his movements are well known and that everybody knows that he's been going in and out of Iraq constantly and moving around. Everybody's known where he is at all times. I didn't know it was so hard to catch up with the guy. Yesterday we all knew where he was all the time.
No. See, once again, like you just said, false paradigm. The intel over General Soleimani of what he was doing was literally said to prevent an ongoing operation he was executing. Okay, so this had nothing to do with, okay, he did something 20 years ago and now we want to assassinate him. This was, holy shit, we have documentation. He's trying to execute mission A, which is blow up fucking DC, take his ass out. How fast can we get him out? This is the fastest, easiest, safest, cleanest method to get him out. Okay, Mr. President, this is what we got. Boom, go, done, did it. Again, it's preventative because the intel just came in, and when we got it, and again, don't forget, President Trump is one of the not the guy like everybody else. President Trump is one of the guys that when you bring him intel, he says, how do you know this? Why do you know this? Why do you think this? How much confidence is in this? Okay, well, how do you have that confidence? Like, he asked those questions, and that's documented not only in the mainstream media, it's documented like across our entire government, even by the opposition. Democrats even say, oh, President Trump questions the intel community too much. Just think about all of the information we have. This is what went on. He fucking crossed his T's and dotted his I's before he ever did it. So this was an intel stopping future attack. And so it was imminent, and it was necessary for timing.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up, because you say that and certain people say that. So then why am I being hit by people constantly talking about the historical record of this person like it's relevant? Like it's relevant.
Well,
because
no,
we're saying on the one hand, we're saying on the one hand that this was just about preventing a future attack, and I say, well, yeah, okay, fair enough. And they say, but also he was a really bad guy who killed a bunch of people for the last 20 years. I'm like, well, hang on, you're kind of just tacking that onto the back, right?
Right.
Like that's aiding the justification. So which one is it? Are we taking care of a historically bad dude, or are we preventing a future attack? James, is this guy a terrorist?
Yes, I think he is, and that's the whole point here.
Okay, that's the point. Good. So, when we talk about terrorists, would you say enemy combatant?
Well, it depends on how you mean that, but I think in the
legal definition, enemy combatant.
Definition, yeah, he would be.
Okay, there's two types of enemy combatants. There's lawful enemy combatants and unlawful enemy combatants. So an unlawful enemy combatant is defined by a non-state actor, okay? That is somebody who is in a non-state group. A non-state group would be Al-Qaeda, Al-Shabaab, right? The terrorist organizations, ISIS. A lawful enemy combatant is somebody who is aligned to a state. Now, by definition, because of this guy's ranking and because of this guy's position in the government of Iran, he is by definition legally a lawful enemy combatant, okay? It doesn't mean he's doing things that are lawful. It means he's a lawful enemy combatant in terms of his position, his official position in the government of Iran.
I would disagree
lawful
with that
enemy
completely.
combatants are able to. Unlawful enemy combatants can be killed and held without trial. Lawful enemy combatants
Have to follow the Geneva Convention.
They're entitled to have. They have rights, right?
Yeah.
Believe it or not. So, pardon me.
So what you're saying is that
So-
if, as long as a terrorist is sponsored by a state, then we can't fuck with him? See, that's
See, sponsored. You're slipping that word in.
No,
he was an official in a foreign government, right?
Right.
That's not sponsoring, right?
Well, it is.
Sponsoring is paying for. Sponsoring would be what Jane Fonda did with the Viet Cong back in the Vietnam War. She was sponsoring terrorists.
I understand that you want to get caught up in the semantics, but the case is still true. Let's pretend I'm a terrorist right now. All I have to do is get hired as a general in the Iraq or Iran army, and all of a sudden I am covered. That's what I'm saying. It's the same freaking argument. It doesn't. I understand the semantics may be a little bit different, but the bottom line is this guy was a terrorist. Iran, documented by every country on the face of the planet, is the leading state sponsor of terror. That he personally led attacks on Americans, planned it, executed them, everything. Guy's a terrorist.
That's fine. That's fine. So, okay, so we don't want to make a distinction between lawful enemy combatant and unlawful enemy combatant. We just want to say terrorist. That's fine. James, do you think that America should ignore international law?
Sure.
And if so, okay, great. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Here again, people are thinking like I'm not even taking a position here.
Right.
But if America wants, you think it's okay for America to ignore international law? That's fine. You can have that. Why should Iran follow it then?
Nothing says that they should. That's the whole point of the sanctions and everything being led by us. No, but I don't. It's arguments again. It's who can execute their case. It's just like this. History is always written by the winners. Okay, so
I'm executing a case. I'm arguing a case right now. In that, if the whole point, so we're the good guys. We're taking care of the bad guys, but we're the good guys who don't follow the law, and we're taking care of the bad guys because they don't follow the law. So it becomes very difficult to prosecute the case right? The moral case of being a good guy when we say, no, fuck international law. Because what we used to do, James, with generals who were accused of war crimes is capture them, take them to The Hague and put them in front of a court, right?
Yeah.
Now, you might say, well, fuck all that. We don't have to do that. Fuck that. We'll just call him a terrorist and we'll just blow him up. But can you see how we're creating rods for our own backs down the line when we try to argue to people, the very people that were in these countries in the first place, that we're there to clean it up? We're cleaning up a mess by doing what? By doing the exact same thing that the other people are doing? Doesn't quite work, does it?
No, I agree with what your premise and what your point is here. I completely do. And I don't give a fuck. Like that's really the bottom line is that, look, every country on this planet throughout history and today can do whatever the fuck they want, whatever they can get away with. This is what I've been talking about forever, is that you can line it up however you want. The bottom line is if you can get away with it, you can do it. And it's always might makes right. Always. It's always going to be. It always will be. Doesn't matter what the scenario is. If you can force somebody else to do what you want, you're going to get away with it. And in our country's interests, that's just the way it is. We play nice with others if they play nice with us. These people haven't chosen to play nice with us at all. So fuck them. Don't care. And I don't care if it pisses off the rest of the planet, to be honest with you, because I know that whatever comes, it comes. It's up to you to decide what's in the interest of that country. I don't care who the country is. I don't care if it's England, Australia. I don't care if it's fucking India, China. I don't care. I'm doing what's in the best interest of the United States, and that's my job as the president of the United States, if I was the president, obviously. So right. That's the whole point, is that I understand your point, though, is that it's going to be hard to make some arguments only if those people want to say, okay, well, we're going to go ahead and make the argument the other way. Okay, go ahead. What are you going to do about it now? It's kind of like the same thing that happened in our country way back in the day with Andrew Jackson when the Supreme Court said that he couldn't do something. He said, okay, great. He's made his position known. Now let's see him enforce it. In other words, fuck you. This is what's in the best interest.
Good. I'm glad you brought that up. So another claim that's being made is, well, what about the people of Iran? We had people back in Iran in the 1970s, girls used to walk around in bikinis, the usual talking point stuff, right? It was a normal free country, all of which is true and all of which I agree with, by the way. Don't take this the wrong way. So why the fuck should the voters give a fuck about what happens to women wearing hijabs in Iran, James? Do the women wearing hijabs in Iran vote in the United States presidential election?
Well, again, let's.
Yes or no? Do they?
No.
Do they?
This is the point of what you just asked.
So why is Donald Trump then on the stage? If it's just about Americans, we're taking care of Americans, why is the added justification being put in there? Yeah, but by the way, we got to look after the Iranian people, tremendous people, lovely people. The Iranian people need to be protected. Since when? I thought I just read you the quote from October last year. It is not our job to be the world police. And now the justifications are starting to leak out. People are using them in the chat right now. Oh, but the poor people of Iran. The poor people of Iran, James. Why the fuck? I've been accused of being a pearl clutcher over the last couple of days. I've been accused, right? Okay, how's this for pearl clutching? People say the people of Kuwait love us now, okay? So so in the interest of being a pearl clutcher, let me say this. I'm glad that since there were no weapons of mass destruction and no real threat from Iraq in 2003, I guess the thousands of soldiers who bled out in the desert in Iraq can rest in peace easy, knowing that they essentially were sacrificed to win a popularity contest for the American government for the people of Kuwait. Am I still being a pearl clutcher? Am I still being a bleeding, or am I a heartless communist now? Actually,
on this issue, I think most MAGA agrees, and this is the point that I tried to make the other day as well, is that, listen, I'm taking responsibility. As a parent, you have to take responsibility for your kids' actions, no matter what, no matter how fucking old you are, if you're a responsible person, okay? That's just the reality of life. You brought them into the world. It's your responsibility to raise them, teach them, correct them, and when they fuck up, to help fix them. Okay, that's just the job of a parent. That's what's going on here. Our kid, fucking George Bush, fucked up that whole fucking region. We never should have went in there. We never should have pursued the war the way that it was done. All of these things never should have happened. We blame him and Barack Obama and others, even George Bush Sr., all of them fucked this region up, right? This is basically at the base root of MAGA. The globalists' agenda is being at work here, including people like General Soleimani. Iran is a puppet for the deep state. every bit as much as Saudi Arabia is a puppet for our government. This is just facts and evidence, okay? These things happen. So as a responsible person, it is our job to try to clean the fucking mess up. We created it. Now we have responsibility for it. So we have to say, okay, let's learn all the bad lessons. Let's take those, and now let's go on a path that makes more sense. That how are we going to help fix this area? And even if that means get the fuck out and let them blow each other to smithereens, but at the same time, we also have to think about things like this. Look, this is the facts, and this is reality. What's going on in Iran is a CIA operation. In case you guys have not clarity about what's going on, this is the same thing that happened under President Reagan. Why? Because it's a policy of helping foment revolution in their country. Now, do we have CIA guys in there being the ones agitating? Probably a couple, but they're there to support the people and get the people riled up. That is the goal. The goal is to have the people overthrow these fucking idiots that are in charge over there. Why? Because it's in our interests. Again, I don't care. But again, as an American, and I think this is solely something that only an American can understand in many ways. I know intellectually you can understand it, but I'm talking about in our hearts and where you feel it. And I said this before. As an American that knows the history of the American Revolution, where we had to get guns to fight for our freedom, I personally will arm any motherfucker willing to fight for their freedom. And that's what's going on. I just don't care. I mean, I don't care whether other people think it's right or wrong or not. That's what happened to us. We had you can have that position. You can have that position, but you just have to be aware that that was the position that Hillary Clinton took in Middle East in 2016. No, that we will arm certain groups to overthrow governments. Now, hang on. Now, okay, you had to run. So here's the thing. I agree with you, right? Well, at least we both agreed at one point. I put this up before. Iran Supreme Leader backs petrol price rises as protests spread. That's a direct result of economic sanctions, right? On this show 18 months ago, James, you and I both said that the way to, if we want to put pressure on the government of Iran, the best way to do that is through economic sanctions. People then get upset at their own government because their own government is engaged in brinkmanship with the United States. They then overthrow their own government. The problem is now, I'm afraid, publications like the Washington Post now agree with you, James. Trump's turn to military against Iran shows limit of economic maximum pressure. So do you see launching the missile to take this guy out is now going to make it more difficult to argue the economic sanctions case? And the economic sanctions case was working. It was working. Right? It's still working. But it's still gonna work. In fact, I can make the whole argument again. Remember, military power, or in some cases the quote has been war, is a further arm of politics. Okay, it's other words, in order to execute politics, sometimes you have to force a motherfucker to do what you want him to do. In this particular case, there's no difference here. Nothing's getting downturned on the economic pressure. In fact, the war, quote unquote, conversation by Donald Trump today or yesterday made that exact point when he said, hey, I'll blow your fucking oil fields to smithereens. You think that's not economic pressure? We will fucking burn, literally set the oil in your country on fire so you can't make another dollar because that's all you got. That's economic pressure. He's just threatening it at the arm of a fucking bullet. That's all. Yep. Okay, so today, I don't know if you saw the footage coming out of, I forget the name of the city, James, Aziz or something like that, Azur. 1 million people at this guy's funeral. So what was 4 days ago the beginnings of an uprising due to economic sanctions in Tehran that had a whole bunch of people, angry at the government, looking for ways to get away from their government, who were supporting interests. You now have millions of people in the streets of Iran waving Iranian flags at a general's funeral. Say that again? Do you think that helps the situation or makes it perhaps slightly more difficult because now we've given somebody a martyr for people to rally behind? Yeah, that is always a danger. That's a political danger that most people throughout history, most of those situations have always occurred. Like you said, actually a point you made which was the assassination of Kaiser Wilhelm launched a fucking world war. Okay, so
Franz Ferdinand.
Yeah, you start thinking about these things, and of course that is a danger, and that's a political calculation that has to be made, and you often don't know what's going to happen. Yeah, I agree that it's possible that happened, that this guy becomes a martyr. I don't necessarily agree that it does. It's just when I look at the geopolitical situation from what I've seen, from what the Iranian government has been doing to its people, what America has been doing, our cyber warriors that have been opening up the ports, making sure the Iranians can get the videos and messages out of the country, all of those things, even including, again, CIA dead drop. I'm telling you right now, the CIA is making sure that video gets the fuck out of Iran because it's good propaganda for us and for the Western world to see what's going on inside that country. I understand. I'm a realist. I can look at the situation and say, this is what is occurring. So when I see that, and I see that the people are against the regime, I mean, again, keep in mind that the Iranian people know for a fact, and they've been calling for it, and it's been on the internet, that this Soleimani guy killed thousands of Iranians. Okay? They're not turning this guy into a martyr as a people, as a whole. Now, the Shias and the people that are in charge in Iran, those people that are pro-government, just like you would say that people in America are pro-government, whatever. Those people are going to always set up, and of course, again, history's written by the winners. So right now, yeah, those people see him as a martyr, for sure. The other people, now we see what's the balance. What is the line in Iran? Is it going to be 80% of the country that's going to say this guy's a martyr, or is it going to be 80% of the country that says, thank God this fucker's dead? I mean, and it could be obviously somewhere in between of that. Now we'll see where that heads, but you can't have a calculation beforehand.
Sure. And as you said before, something that I wouldn't be able to understand, the American mindset when it comes to revolutions, James, and fighting back and whatnot. How many people was it that were fighting and pro-revolution? I believe you've told me before in the American Revolution, it was actually a very small number of people who actually caused the revolution.
Yeah.
How many was it? 20%?
I think it was actually more like 30%. It was like 35% of the population, but by number.
So you see my point there, though, by making that distinction, right? By drawing that comparison. You see the point I'm making.
Absolutely.
Here's one for you. Iraqi parliament calls for US troops to be expelled. Coalition suspends operation against ISIS. The Iraqi parliament passed a resolution Sunday, that's today, calling for the government to expel foreign troops from the country in the wake of a US airstrike that killed a top Iranian general, raising questions about the future of the allied mission that has successfully fought the Islamic State, or ISIS, in recent years. I want to bring this up because whilst people are saying that I have been manipulated into supporting a terrorist, I'm going to put to you, I know it's laughable, but people do believe that. I'm going to put it to you, I'm going to put it to you that I think many people are actually being manipulated into wanting to stay in the Middle East and wanting to maintain a presence and wanting to keep fighting other people's wars in the Middle East, where 2 years ago they did not. Here's Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, James. He defended the US troop presence in an interview with Fox News, saying Abdul Mahdi was under pressure from the Iranians. The Prime Minister is the acting Prime Minister. He's under enormous threats from the very Iranian leadership that we are pushing back against. We're confident the Iraqi people want the United States to continue to be there. So the Iraqi parliament, James, passes a resolution to say, okay, we don't want any more foreign troops in Iraq. We want all of the foreign troops out, regardless of what happens. This is the kind of conversation that's happening over there. Regardless of what happens, we want the foreign troops out. Now, there's a few angles to this.
Yep.
So Mike Pompeo hears that. Mike Pompeo hears that and says, no, you know what? We're going to stay. I think we're going to stick around. We might stick around because deep down, we know that you really want us. Now, the flip side to that is another truthful thing that says there are a lot of politicians in the Iraq government who have very strong ties to Iran. That's true. People have been reporting it for the last couple of years that Iran's influence over the Iraqi government has been growing, where there are people in various cabinet positions and stuff who are very friendly to Iran. You've said previously that the United States government needs to maintain a presence in Iraq in order to prevent a vacuum which would see Iran taking over. James, I put it to you, Well, I'm going to ask you earnestly, if the United States government, having wiped out and killed all of the previous members of the previous government, based on what is now considered to be worldwide false pretenses, that being the WMDs in Iraq, we took the last government out. We created the system. We haven't put this government in, but we've created this system for this government to be in. And we've been there for 16, 17 years now. What kind of influence does America have an effective influence in Iraq from preventing other countries from getting a grip on power whilst they're there for 17 years? How could it possibly be that Iran is in control of the Iraqi government? So much so that the Iraqi government is now passing resolutions to kick the United States Army out of Iraq, and Mike Pompeo says, "No, I don't think so. I think we're going to stay." And how does that not prove that people are being manipulated into supporting now, going 180 degrees on the promises that were made in 2016? And now saying, no, we're going to stay in the Middle East. We're not leaving the Middle East. We can't leave the Middle East. Mike Pompeo, hey, we're going to stay there. Donald Trump's right-hand man. See, I'm the one that hasn't changed here.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm getting too many points to make before it'll end up exploding out the other side and I'll forget to make them, okay? So let's try to slow it down just a tick. So let's start with this, is that, first of all, let me say this. On the general overview, I actually 100% agree with Boogie on this point. I'm watching Wag the Dog occur right now. I'm watching the war dogs beat the drums of war. I'm watching the media, including Fox. They're doing these specials. Update war in Iran. Get ready to kick some ass. Like, I'm serious. It looks like a fucking drag race advertisement. Sunday. Get your asses over here. We're going to blow some motherfuckers up. Okay.
We'll sell you a ticket for the whole seat, but you'll only need the edge.
Exactly. Okay, so I'm watching that happen. Okay, so I agree with that we have to be careful and vigilant as Americans to watch what the media is doing and trying to twist things. Having said that, there were some major points that you didn't bring up, and again, maybe because it was just timing, but for one, what you just saw in the Iraqi parliament is exactly what you just saw in America with the impeachment vote. It went directly along party lines, but you have to understand the party lines. All of the fucking Iranian Shia aligned, again, Shiites are the reason. It's not nationality, it's religious. So the Shias all voted to kick out America. Now, America isn't there at the behest of Parliament. America is there at the behest of the Prime Minister, period. So when you look at what was on the other side, a lot of the other guys, they didn't even fucking show up, number one. Nobody that was pro-American, they're like, fuck, it doesn't matter. It's a show vote. It's exactly what we just saw in the Democrat impeachment process. Now, having said that, move forward to the next point, is that what Mike Pompeo is saying has been supportive of exactly Donald Trump's position, number one, and number two is to leave him latitude to do whatever the fuck he wants. Is that he has said, no, we're trying to de-escalate this stuff, but we're not Donald Trump will not have this. You cannot walk down the street and punch Donald Trump in the face and expect him to just bend over like Obama did. It's not going to fucking happen. So, when he's saying that we're trying to prevent what's going on in the Middle East, like Iran, again, you have to understand how the religion ties this. It's literally party politics. That's exactly what you're watching. The Democrats, the Shias, are aligned, but the Sunnis and the Kurds and everybody else are on our side. So again, it comes down to, how do you do this? Well, you fucking play hardball. And that's what you're seeing happen. We're increasing protection level forces, okay? If this was an invasion force, you'd see 100,000 boots on the ground, not 3,000. 3,000 is about force projection and protection, because we don't win wars with boots on the ground. We gain territory and secure territory with boots on the ground. We win wars with the might of our entire military, which involves air, ground, land, sea. Okay, all of that stuff. It's like a perfect example is, even you can go back to Vietnam and the differences in what Americans did. They sat their asses in a foxhole as long as they could, and they called in air support. They called in fire missions for our mortar teams, things like that. That's how we win wars. Okay, we don't win them by sending in 100,000 troops, but we send 100,000 troops in in order to secure the land and basically hold it down. That's how you control territory. So the sheer movements of what Donald Trump's doing tells you this is not about invasion. This is not about occupation. This is about force projection and about securing our assets and our interests. And again, I don't give a fuck if people think it's right or wrong. Our interest is to not allow Iran to fucking control anything. Even Iran.
They already are. They already are.
Yeah.
They already are.
They are, but it's not in our interest.
There's 20,000 troops stationed in Kuwait at all times.
Yeah.
Which is right next door to Iraq. So if we admit that there is a troop presence in Iraq, see, you can finagle around it, but the reality remains the same. The promises were made, we are getting out of the Middle East. And now you're making the argument that we can't get out of the Middle East, that we have to stay there because we have to protect our interest. Now, that's fine. That's totally fine if that's the position, right? But then I'm not going to be, you saw it on my show. The same people who are calling me Democrats now were cheering me when I was playing Donald Trump speeches of saying we need to get out of the Middle East and playing clips of, American soldiers being brought back in coffins, right? The same people. So if the position is now we're going to stay, then that's fine. But then don't send me pictures of, dead Marines coming back. Don't play speeches of Donald Trump saying we need to get out of the Middle East, like he said in October last year, because it's plainly false. We're playing the fork-tongue game, right? I've got a couple of things to address about what you said. So you said the vote was on party lines, correct?
Yeah.
That all the Shias voted to kick out the US, but the president, like the Prime Minister of Iraq, well, this is a quote from the Prime Minister of Iraq. Despite the internal and external difficulties that we might face, it remains best for Iraq on principle and practically. He's talking about getting foreign troops out. That's why Mike Pompeo is saying, oh, no, don't listen to the Prime Minister of Iraq because he's under pressure from Iran.
Yeah.
So the very person that you're saying proves that this is about sectarian, that's disproving that point, right?
No.
Because you said the Prime Minister of Iraq didn't vote this way. It's not up to the Prime Minister of Iraq doesn't want this. He's with us. He's saying the exact opposite.
No. I didn't say that. What I said was to date. That's not what's happened, okay? He hasn't voted anything. What I'm saying is America is there under executive authority of Iraq, okay? So under the Prime Minister's authority. He's not there under parliamentary authority, okay? So their vote doesn't mean shit. What will matter is if the Prime Minister says that he wants us out. At that point, then
he just did.
No, he didn't.
Just did.
He didn't officially. He did not officially throw us out yet. That's the point. He may have said it's in our best interest, but he hasn't made a determination. He hasn't made a decision. He hasn't notified the United States that he wants us out. And in that case, Donald Trump has already responded as to how that will go. And I will remind everybody about Guantanamo Bay. Guantanamo Bay proves what's likely to occur here, even if that occurs. Fuck you. That's our base. We fucking put it there. Just like Guantanamo Bay when Cuba wanted us out.
There it is. See,
fuck you.
We ain't leaving. There it is.
We're not going to leave our base. We're not going to leave behind $1 billion base. It's not going to fucking happen. Okay?
There you go. So we ain't leaving.
Yeah.
That's the new position for 2020. We ain't leaving.
It's different. You can wrap it up in that nice little bow. I get it. That's a great talking point, but it's just a talking point because most people understood from the beginning. Donald Trump did never say that we're just going to evacuate the area and have nobody anywhere. We're just going to give it up. That would be dumb. Donald Trump has never struck me as dumb. He's never done a dumb fucking thing like that. You don't just leave completely 100% out of everywhere. What you do is stop fighting the fucking weird war that these guys were trying to do and just, nonstop, incessant, let's send more troops. He's gonna fucking get us out. And just like I was right with Syria, how he handled to get out of Syria, you're gonna see the same things occur here, in my opinion. I think the same exact strategy is still playing out in the Middle East. We're going to kick these motherfuckers out. People are exposing themselves ever. We'll protect our interests. And then we don't have to fight a war in Iraq. All we have to do is protect our interests. However that comes out, it's fine. Like I said, Donald Trump's not going to send an invasion force in. Those 52 targets, he's not sending 500,000 troops over to take out 52 targets. He's likely to send 52 Tomahawk missiles to take out those targets. The same things are occurring there. That was the point of get out of these wars, is quit sending in thousands upon thousands upon thousands of Americans to go in, walk fucking patrols, die from IEDs, fucking invade fucking another foreign country with our troops. That's what the message was around. It wasn't about not doing what's in our best interest.
Okay. That quote again from Donald Trump from October last year, we're getting out. Let someone else fight over this long blood-stained land. The job of our military is not to police the world.
Right.
That was the quote from October last year.
Right. I just think that we disagree with what that looks like. I'm not saying that. Okay. I just think we disagree about what that exactly looks like. Like, yeah. It's like exactly what happened in Syria, right? Everybody said, here comes war, 100,000 troops going into Syria. Oh, look, we're escalating in Syria. What ended up happening?
I didn't say that, by the way.
No, I know you didn't. I'm sorry if that. And I'll apologize to everybody listening.
No. I know you know that, but just for idiots who might be watching, you said Boogie said the same thing about Syria. No,
he didn't. Boogie didn't say that at all. I'm talking more about people like Cernovich and people like that. Is that all of the troops got drawn down?
Interestingly enough, sorry to interrupt, have you noticed all of the people who did that about Syria are now the flag waving the hardest out of everyone? Yay, we killed the terrorists. It's almost like, pardon me if this is an unfair accusation, it's almost like they tested the winds with the Syria thing, realized that they got really unpopular for saying the wrong thing, and now they're going back completely on what they said during the Syria thing in order to be popular. Yeah. Isn't that the darndest thing?
Isn't it darn funny? So that's what I'm saying. It's going to be parallel along those lines. Exactly. We drew down troops. We're down to about 1,000. We're purely just protecting our interests there. We're keeping a small presence in there for mostly what's called a reactionary force for our allies and for our interests. That's it. We don't want terrorists. We're not going to let Syria. Well, probably for a very long time. I agree with you. It's probably because one thing we won't allow to happen is we will not allow ISIS to reform and take that oil and reconquer all the territory that thousands upon thousands of Americans and Australians and English died for. It would be dumb. It's literally, and I understand where your argument's going to go here, is that, you can't throw bad money after good. I get that, but we can't allow those motherfuckers to take over the oil either. It's a balance, and it sucks. We never should have went in there, but again, you have to take responsibility for what you did. We already went in there, so now we have to make sure we're continuing to protect our interests.
Okay, protecting the oil. That's interesting because, again, over the last couple of days, one of the arguments I've heard here is, see, this is, again, I have to stress, it's not about, for me, it's not really about, should terrorists die or not. If you're looking through it through that lens, you're being very, very basic bitch about it. You're being very low-level thinking here. But I just dislike, like I said, false paradigms being presented in front of me. So another argument for the last couple of days has been, we're not doing it for the oil. We don't care about the oil. We're energy independent now.
Yeah,
but now we need to protect the oil fields.
No.
Our
interest. Different. Right? No. You see, again, that's disingenuous, I think, because I'm not saying, and Donald Trump has not said, and this was specifically what I said on this show as well, we will blow your motherfucking oil fields to smithereens. We're not doing it to keep your oil. We don't give two fucks about keeping your oil. It's not even about the oil in Syria either. It's about keeping that oil and that money from the enemy, from terrorists. We're not taking it. And again, Donald Trump's original argument was, well, now you went in there. Why the fuck didn't you take the oil? You went in there because of X, Y, and Z. That leads to the next fucking number here. But you didn't do that. You fucking around. You let ISIS take the oil. You let ISIS use the petrodollars that they made from the oil to fund more troops and to take over a fucking country. That was the argument. So the argument again right now is not saying we don't give a fuck about the oil, but we will blow it to fucking kingdom come before we let the terrorists benefit from it. That's the difference. There's a big difference in how you address that. If you just say it's about the oil, those are the people that are saying, oh, Donald Trump just wants to take the oil for America and fuck out all of the little guy. No. He's saying if the terrorists are going to come take it, fuck it, I'll blow it up.
Okay, but as has been proven over the last 48 hours, you don't need people guarding oil fields in order to blow them up. You can just hit them with missiles. There are American troops right now stationed at oil fields in Syria.
Yeah.
Why?
And who?
If
well,
it's about
because,
stopping the
again,
terrorists from getting oil, just blow it up. Do it now.
Again,
Do it now.
Understanding
Right?
who those troops are is very important. These are not just your basic run-of-the-mill infantry privates out there. Okay.
Oh, I know.
It's these are the people that paint targets. These are the people that understand what they're looking at and give intel back home.
Correct.
So these are not troops that are there for that mission. The protecting of our interests, why there's about 1,000 troops there, is again force protection, protect our guys, but be able to get intelligence level on the ground back home so that we have real time information, be able to paint targets with for those missiles. And that's what's going on. So you have to understand who those troops are.
So I know that was one of the talking points that the Democrats made when that I was defending against when the Syria troop pullout thing was announced. Yep. They said, well, it's only 52 people. It's only 52 people who are in little encampments who are running reconnaissance and telling people where to bomb, like looking for, targets on the horizon. And I said, I defended the pullout as it was, now fraudulently presented as well. That doesn't matter if it's 52 or 1. If get out means get out, then at some point you have to get out. And, leaving behind a 1,000 people is not getting out. You can say that it's getting out, but it's not, because there's still 1,000 people there. They still need to be supplied. They're still not on American soil. So, we can play the semantics game around that. Right. But, I mean, reality is reality. And at least say we're not getting out then. Say we can't get out then. But then don't make speeches to the contrary. Because at that point, you're just lying to people. You're just flat out lying. You can say it's more complicated than that. Fair enough. Yeah. But I think if you want to present the genuine argument, not you here, but obviously, Trump and other people, if you want to present the genuine argument, you can say, well, we want to get most of the people out, but we can't get all of the people out because then bad guys will get the oil fields. And then you say, well, we don't want the oil fields. We'll just blow them up. And then people like me are going to say, well, then why do you need guys there to why do you need people on the ground to stop enemies getting the oil if you can just blow it up? Why not blow it up now? And see, this is another claim that's been made over the last couple of days, James. We could just level Iran. Have you heard that? Yeah. We'll just level the place. We'll just level the place. Really? If it was that easy, why haven't you done it already? You've got the arsenal. You've got the missiles. Why not just do it? Because it's a question of political will, right? And it's always a question of political will. Do you have the balls? Now, I put it to you. Now, see, you can be tough, and America does have a very tough military. America's got the best equipment and stuff like that. Do you genuinely believe that Donald Trump even considers it an option to level an entire country? Do you think the entire rest of the world would just stand back and watch the United States government literally kill about 40 million people? Do you think that would ever happen? What president wants do you think Donald Trump wants his legacy to be killing 40 million people after claiming that he wanted to get out of the Middle East? Honestly.
Yeah. So now I'm going to lay the scenario. I can answer that question real quick and just lay the scenario out there for you. If Iran launches a dirty bomb anywhere on the planet, you can bet that there will be strong retaliation, and I can see at least a tactical nuclear response based on their action. So there is a scenario there. If Iran even sponsors Hezbollah to launch a dirty bomb attack anywhere in this planet, there will be a serious consequence paid because Donald Trump is the man at the helm that will do it. Now, the answer of will he level a whole country? Likely not. But if Iran takes it to that level, Donald Trump will have no problem pulling the trigger because it's justified. These are people, again, I point to it. You can argue whether or not it's a good thing. I thought we cared about the poor innocent Iranians. We do. And now we're going to destroy their country to save them? If they can't, no, it's not. It's not to save them at that point. At that point, it's the same fucking basic principle that I've talked about before. If I'm walking down the street and I punch you in the nose and take your wallet and you do anything about it, are you starting a war? No, I did. So the same goes true here. If Iran walks down the street and tries to punch me in the face, I'm going to do everything I can to fuck them up. If they walk down the street and launch a dirty bomb, I'm sorry. You fucking let your leadership put you in this position. And I understand as an American, I'm in the same fucking boat. If Donald Trump inspires that to happen somehow, I may very well may pay with my life. I understand that. I understand that could happen tomorrow. I don't care.
That's not the point I'm making.
Yeah, I know that's not the point you're making, but it's the point I'm making, is that these people, yes, Donald Trump could very well level the whole fucking country, and it's going to be, so what? You fucking let those crazy motherfuckers in charge of you launch a dirty bomb, otherwise it wouldn't have happened.
Okay. So really all we need to worry about then is the intelligence community, who last week we were told we must not trust under any circumstances. If they come up with some kind of evidence, if they find evidence of a dirty bomb being released somewhere, that will give justification to leveling an entire country?
I don't think it'll go that far, but I definitely think that you could very well see the release of a tactical nuclear weapon. I really do. In the case that someone else goes nuclear first, there's virtually almost no choice but to respond in kind.
Okay.
I mean,
does this fall under the column of fixing the mess that Obama and Bush made?
No, this comes down to just purely protecting
making
yourself.
a new one.
and yeah, I don't think it's a mistake, to be honest with you. Again, I'm the same guy. I'm not the guy you want to try to rob on the street. I'm not. I think it's very parallel here. I mean, at that point, you just say, fuck it. You made your choice. Now deal with the consequences.
Okay. I'm glad you brought up Obama. I'm very glad that you're bringing up the things that I've prepared for. So, I'm glad that you brought up Obama. So Obama was this is another claim that's been made over the last couple of days. And it's like, okay, let's investigate it. Obama was a pussy, James. Is that true? Like, Obama didn't do nothing, right? Obama wouldn't do shit. Obama dropped more bombs than George W. Bush did. There was a rule under Obama that anybody on the battlefield at the time when bombs are being dropped on the battlefield, James, anybody on the battlefield at that time is considered to be an enemy combatant and therefore cannon fodder. Man, woman, child, didn't matter. The only way that they could clear their name was posthumously after the attack. If it was proven that they were not a terrorist, then the United States government would say, oh, okay, a bit like a witch trial. You know, if we throw you off the cliff and you hit the ground, then I guess you're not a witch. Basically the same kind of thing. If we hit you with a missile and you're not a terrorist, oh, well, we found out. So good on us. That doesn't sound like a very pussy thing to me. That sounds pretty fucking hardcore, if you ask me. Basically, the government policy under Obama was kill them all and let God sort them out. And there were a lot of people that were criticizing this at the time. So when you look at that, when you take like the raw data of it, you see that he wasn't necessarily a pussy, but he was attacking people who you would say he should have been. You would say he was attacking the wrong people, right?
Mm. Okay.
He was blowing the wrong people up. He was defending the wrong people's interest. Correct? So he was probably helping Iran and bombing other people.
Yeah,
instead.
I think it's much more complicated than that. Like a lot of ignorance is involved. But generally speaking, yeah, I would agree with your point.
Okay, so really so we're not actually arguing, all of this is being revealed now. So we're not actually really fighting for getting out of the Middle East. We've discovered that. We're not actually really fighting for de-escalating. We're fighting for bombing other people. Just not the people that Obama was bombing. We want to bomb the people that he was bombing on behalf of.
I disagree.
That's generally what's happening here.
I disagree.
But I mean, yeah, but put yourself in the mind of like an independent, low information voter. Like, see what's being presented to them.
And now you have the exact reason why wag the dog is occurring when you start talking about the low information voter, and you also highlight why in some ways that's it's right or wrong, which I agree that it's wrong. In some ways, these people need to listen to something, right? So at least these left-wing idiots that are all over CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, even though they're doing it for the wrong reasons, at least they're bringing their people, the dumb, low-information voters, closer to the information. At least in the correct direction, where people can start making them think for themselves, because I would agree that a lot of people would see it the way that you're seeing it, but I disagree wholeheartedly that that's the premise. I still think that exactly the things that I described tonight overall is all about getting out of the Middle East. It's not about getting further in. And I can display that track record again by pointing to certain other regions around the world like Syria where these things have occurred. Where, again, even like Kim Jong-un, right? When Donald Trump took over, Kim Jong-un, we were going to go to World War III with Kim Jong-un. It was going to be North Korea. What did Donald Trump do? You see, and here's another thing, actually, I'm going to make an argument that I hope you appreciate because it's your argument, is that what Donald Trump loves to do is to go out the other end. He likes to make these far positions and then angle back. So he puts the pressure on Kim Jong-un and says, fuck you, go ahead and launch a missile. My button's bigger and it works. And what happens is we get to the table. And the same thing has happened over and over and over again. So the same thing here is it's still an escalatory type of thing. It's like, look, what's the fastest way to solve the Middle East? Is it to let them fuck around the same way they've been fucking around for 40 years and try to talk, and let them keep killing Americans, let them keep killing other people? Or is it better to just take out the fucking target, General Soleimani, maybe even the, God forbid, that we escalate to the Ayatollah himself, but is it better to do that and come out the other end? Because we're much closer to that end than we are at this end. And that's what Donald Trump has proven success at doing. Many times on many fronts, including domestic policy, international policy, war things, all of these things, just like Syria, right? We launched 52 Tomahawk missiles in there, and we ended up in a better position with less war, not more. The same thing I think is occurring here. Is again, we're going in that direction. So I argue, and I will continue to argue, that this is exactly about getting us out of the Middle East, not digging us further in for this long, protracted thing that could happen.
Okay. And you bring up some historical examples. Of course, the same set of circumstances don't apply. So we have to, that's fair enough. And I do agree with you, generally speaking. I don't necessarily agree that applying that set of circumstances to Iran is going to work out the same way it did in Syria. Iran has a far bigger population, a far bigger military. Syria is a very fractured country, war-torn over the last 10 to 15 years. They were fighting a war on 3 fronts, as well as an internal civil war. So, actions taken in Syria, I don't think necessarily would just be applied to Iran and have everything go swimmingly. So that's a faith-based position. You're saying based on previous occurrences, I believe that the same thing will happen, which is fine if that's the way we want to take it. But essentially, we're operating on faith here.
I think that's a little simplistic, but yes, I can agree with the overall point of what you're saying. Is that it's just like if you're playing poker against me, right? When you're playing poker, if over and over and over
I'd be
again,
broke.
Yeah, over and over and over again, you're watching me make the same moves. You can't then calculate me to make a different move, which I may very well do at the end, right? Because you and I have talked about this before, right? I will set people up exactly that way. I will raise under the gun, and every time I show those cards, I got the nuts. Then I'll raise under the gun with absolute shit. And then they'll never put me on a fucking flyer because they just can't make the hand, right? The flop comes out, and I fucking hit a nut straight, and they think I've got aces, but they're sitting on something else, right? Again, this is what I'm talking about, is that you have to go by track records. You have to go by history and make the best decisions you can make every single time. You may be wrong, and that's the point. Everybody may be wrong. We may get this wrong. We may fuck this up, right? But historically, and every decision that I've watched him make has led me to trust his instinct alone, let alone what knowledge he has that we don't possess. That's the biggest gray area here that people like us, people in the media, people on the left, people on the right have here, is that we only have about 60% of the information. That's all we have. 60% of the information. We don't know what Donald Trump knows. And so far, historically, he's made the right decision every time.
Okay. I'm glad you brought that up because I thought you might. So I just want to address this. The president has more information than us, so we can't no claim. And okay, that's objectively true. But we're having a discussion here, right?
Right.
Ignorance is not an argument. You can't say that not knowing something is a valid reason for people to agree with what you don't know. Because at that point, I don't think you are necessarily, but a lot of people do. People at that point, you're bragging about not knowing something and trying to use that ignorance as a power play. And that's not the American that I know. See, the American that I know is naturally distrustful of government authority. The American I know would say, I don't believe it until I see it. The American I know would bitch slap the American who just says, trust the government and don't ask too many questions. Because at that point, you've essentially become a Obama-era leftist. Remember, you have to pass the bill to know what's in it. Yeah. Remember that?
Yeah.
Now it's, you have to let us bomb who we want in order to know if they deserved it or not.
Right.
Like... Very similar stuff. The Americans I know wouldn't say, hey, I don't know what's going on, so I'm just going to go with whatever the government says. Now, you talked about the American mentality before, and it's something that I couldn't possibly understand. So maybe I was wrong all along. Maybe Americans do just trust the government and whatever the government authorities say without having the information themselves. Maybe I've been wrong all this time.
No, I agree with your everything you just said 100%. There's only one caveat that I would insert. And it's exactly the point I've made all along, especially on Trust and Verify and every other show. It's the same exact caveat. Number one, I trust Donald Trump. Nobody else in the government. I want Trust and Verify. That's the whole point of the show. We have to fucking verify what the fuck we're being told at all times, figure it out for ourselves, and read behind the lines. 100% I agree with that. When it comes to Donald Trump, there's two factors. Number one, he's always steered us correctly towards the goals that we, MAGA, have for America, number one. Number two is we also don't have any choice because he's the only one fighting for us. We have nobody else fighting for us. There's nobody else trying to destroy the globalists. There's nobody else trying to fix the problems that we have. There's nobody else trying to get us out of the Middle East. And that's a perfect example of this very show is demonstrating that nobody except Donald Trump is trying to get us out of the Middle East. Not anybody in our government or anybody in the media. They're all trying to wag the dog. Everybody's trying to beat the drum of war. And the very fucking assholes that said, oh my God, Syria, 100,000 troops are now going, rah, rah, Rick and Bah, let's go kick some terrorist ass. I mean, you have to understand that the premise that you have there is 100% correct. Americans should never trust our government. But Donald Trump.
Except this time.
No, not this time. I still don't think we should trust the government. We should trust Donald Trump. There's a big difference here because, again, Donald Trump has pursued our interests at every single turn. He's never given up. He's never wavered. When they said he couldn't have the wall, he said, fuck you, I'm getting the wall. No, you're not getting the wall. Yes, I'm getting the wall. No, you're not getting the wall. Yes, I'm getting the wall. Well, guess what just happened? It might have taken 3 fucking years, but he just got funding for the wall. He's never given up. He doesn't stop. He's not a typical politician. He doesn't change his fucking opinions with the fucking weather. He's consistently always done what we wanted done from the beginning. And so that's why we have to trust him, not the government. There's a big difference because there's plenty of people like John Bolton who would just, have a hard on for days. Let's go fucking kill everybody in Iran. I don't think that's Donald Trump's play here. But I also know he won't back down from it either. If it has to happen, it will. But there's a difference. I don't think that's his play. Like I said, he strategically does things. He never would have made this play if there wasn't a very good reason to do it, because he's never done it before.
And just for the people who came in late, in case you missed the opening of the show and you're not quite sure what's going on, here's a quick list of the things that we agreed on at the top of the show. Soleimani is a bad guy. Iran has a lot of influence in Iraq. Countries have a right to defend themselves. Embassies are sovereign soil. The Iraqi military base where the contractor was killed was not sovereign soil. The airport where Soleimani was killed was not sovereign soil. And it's a complex situation happening in Iraq right now. So we agreed on all of those things. So, I just wanted a couple of people coming in and saying, what? Terrorism? What the hell? So you mentioned the media wagging a dog, James. I'm going to have to give props to my boy here. Where is he? Here he is. Here's a couple of minutes for you from Tucker, James.
Fucking Tucker. Now, I want to be clear here. I am one of the very few on MAGA's side that have never been on the trucker train, right? I've always said, look, if you understood who Tucker Carlson was, you'd understand he is pretty much a libertarian. He is not ever been a conservative, and people have gotten that confused. So that's why I've said
Exactly.
many times in the past where I've disagreed with Tucker wholeheartedly, and I'm sure I'm going to disagree with half of his premise here.
Yep. I mean, I retweeted a girl the other day who is sending nude photographs for every $10 donation made to the Australian Bushfire Fund. So, you know, for all intents and purposes, I'm not much of a conservative either, if that helps you out.
Right.
So
Exactly.
let's see what Tucker's got to say.
Instead, chest beaters like Senator Ben Sass of Nebraska are making the usual warlike noises, the ones they always make. This is very simple, Ben Sass wrote in a statement last night. General Soleimani is dead because he was an evil bastard who murdered Americans.
James, I don't know about you, but that kind of that to me represents massive dumbing down. Like that is just
Yeah, Ben Sass is an idiot too. by the way.
Low level thinking. That is first level thinking entirely, right?
Right.
We agree on another thing. We agree on. Wonderful. We actually agree on more than we disagree on here. This is a great show. What a debate.
Which is essentially true. Soleimani was certainly a bad guy. But does that make killing him, quote, very simple? It does not. Nothing about life and certainly nothing about killing is ever very simple. And any politician who tells you otherwise is dumb or is lying. Yes, Soleimani was linked to the deaths of Americans. Nobody mourns his passing. But Mexico and China are also linked to the deaths of Americans. Each has flooded our country with narcotics from which tens of thousands of Americans die every single year. Not that anyone in power cares.
I just want to inject an article here, James, if I can take this opportunity, and then we'll get back to Tucker in a second. The claim, fuck around and find out, which is one of my personal favorites. Investigation shows Pensacola shooting appears to be a terrorist attack. White House official says, James. Fuck around and find out. This was a Saudi terrorist on mainland American soil, not an embassy overseas, not an airfield, not an Iraqi military base, an American naval base in America, who killed 3 U.S. service members. James, how many Saudi Arabian targets have been hit in the wake of this terrorist attack? Fuck around and find out, right?
I understand the point you're making, but again, I think it's a little disingenuous because I go back to this one point: is that Mexico?
No. I think you misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm saying the fuck around and find out line is disingenuous because of things like this. Because it's not really fuck around and find out. It's fuck around and find out with a given set of circumstances. To say that Donald Trump is going to hit anybody who puts American lives at risk is disingenuous because it's objectively not true.
No, I think
because here you have a Saudi Arabian national killing Americans on American soil, and we do nothing.
We didn't do nothing.
You see my point?
No, I do understand your point if I accepted the premise that we did nothing, but we did do something. The difference is the response is proportional to the outcome, right? Is that we got rid of, I think we locked down every single Saudi Arabian in all of the programs. We got immediate help from the Saudi Arabian government, and that being the crystal clear.
They helped?
Yeah,
they helped us.
Yeah, we actually have people over there figuring out what happened with this. They've given 100% support to, I believe, and again, we can argue over the fact that the FBI is full of a bunch of scumbags, but
Absolutely.
We do have people over there trying to make sure that we've rooted out the entire terror network here. So we're getting facilitated help from the government. We're not getting facilitated help from Iran. We're not getting facilitated help from even Iraq in some instances. So there is a difference in the response level. I will give you that 100%. So I understand why you would make the argument that fuck around and find out may be a little disingenuous. But that's only if you apply it to all situations, which I don't think most people actually mean it that way. I think most people actually mean it the way that, you or I generally would. Like, fuck around with Boogie, right? If Boogie's walking down the street and I try to rob you, fuck around and find out, right? You're not going to let me rob you. It's the same thing here, right? There's going to be some kind of response. There's going to be some kind of reaction. Yeah. There's going to be something that occurs. It just, what's the proportionality? I don't think if I try to rob you, you're going to fucking hunt me down and try to assassinate me. There's a big difference.
No, but apparently what's happened in this case is after you robbed me, I went back to your family and asked for their help in order to get my money back from you, apparently. Which, presents problems.
I think that's a little soft, but okay.
Well, I mean, hey, a Saudi national killed 3 of our guys on a base. Please help us, Saudi Arabia. Please
make
help
sure
us. Oh, yes. Okay. And forgetting, mind
Well,
you,
helping
every
us
other
by
day of the
letting
year,
our-
every other day of the year, we understand that in that part of the world, you can't make deals and expect people to follow through because they're shaking your hand with one hand and stabbing you in the back with the other, which is something that everybody knows about the region. You know,
No,
even during the
I think
the first Gulf War, we were getting a whole bunch of Iraqi guys to fight on the side of the Americans just by paying them.
Yeah,
know.
but in Saudi Arabia's case, like I've explained this before about Saudi Arabia, and I don't care if people like it or not. Saudi Arabia is our puppet. That's it. Bottom line. So
I agree.
all the bad actions you've seen out of Saudi Arabia in the past, that was in line with what the fucking globalists in our country wanted to occur. I mean, that's a fact. Okay, you can argue it. That's great, but you can even see the writing in how they change why the crown prince, not the king, runs the country, and why they change crown princes like that. And that's what's occurred here, right? Is now we have a completely pro-Trump guy running Saudi Arabia. He's doing what we want. So it's a little bit soft to say that, they're just going to give us help. I mean that they're letting our people go do whatever they have to do to investigate to solve the issue, to make sure that we've gotten the entire organization and the entire responsible party for what was behind this action. So you can absolutely point to the past at Saudi Arabia and say they have fucked us over as many times as they haven't, but they have fucked us over because it was in line with the globalist agenda that our own people supported. They've been our puppets since day one. That's the inception of Saudi Arabia. If you don't understand, I know you do. I don't mean this against you. I know you understand the inception of the entire country of Saudi Arabia. These were just the Bedouins that basically the American oil companies decided to get in bed with and support to form a country. There was no country before that. It was a bunch of fucking lunatics riding around on fucking camels screaming at each other with sabers. And so when they found oil there and they wanted the oil, they said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to set up a fucking country. This has been since day one. So it's not new to me. I understand that all of the historical significance is what's happened there. And I think, again, in this case, they're playing ball with exactly what would be the right proportional response to getting rid of all of the terrorists, getting to the roots of everything. And each incident is separate. I mean, there's no single solitary overriding thing. There's nothing that says we have to blow Saudi Arabia up because one Saudi Arabian committed a terrorist act on American soil. Whereas, we know that Iran sponsors the terrorism. They've literally publicly stated we're going to send terrorists to blow you up. We've put an $80 million bounty on Donald Trump's head. They're clearly responsible if anything happens from an Iranian. So, it's proportionality.
Well, not to get too far off track, but I think that's a dangerous thing to say. They're clearly responsible because we've argued, you and I have argued in the past, though, that when you create a certain set of circumstances, somebody from the other side can do something and blame the other person. And next thing you know, this is how we suspected a lot of the things under when Donald Trump first came to power were started by bad actors instigating to try and get some kind of response.
Yes.
So I'm not prepared to say that that's never going to happen again, because again, if we want to go on historical trends, it's happened a lot.
That's true. But again, you have to question the fact of what's the sanity of the fucking Iranians to put that out there in public if they don't want to be held.
Who said they were saying?
Yeah, no, but that's what I'm saying, right? You can't. It'd be the same as if I come out and I say I'm going to fucking assassinate Boogie and you end up dead tomorrow. It would be fucking completely justified that I'm responsible for that somehow. The cops have to fucking try to figure that one out because I fucking publicly stated it. So that's what they did. So I agree that it's dangerous, but you can't just walk away from it and say, well, they're not, to say they're responsible is a little harsh. No, I don't think so. You fucked around. You opened your mouth. You decided to act out in public because you wanted to beat your chest. And now you're going to be held responsible. If a single fucking Iranian blows anything up anywhere in the Western Hemisphere, you're going to fucking be held responsible. You opened your mouth and you publicly declared that you are responsible. You literally said, we'll pay you $80 million if you accomplish this goal. I mean, I don't care who does it. I don't care if China
and
says,
the same applies going
target.
back. The same applies going back the other way then, of course.
What's
so
that?
if so the same applies going back the other way. So if the United States government or Donald Trump or Mike Pompeo says we're going to blow up, a cultural site if anything else happens, and a cultural site gets blown up, but it was, say, the Iranians doing it themselves to rally people to their cause, or it was ISIS in order to get more confrontation so they can capitalize on fracturing of states like Iraq and Syria, it would be okay just to blame America without sort of investigating it. That would be okay.
Well, no, of course there would be investigation. Of course there would be. But what you're pointing out is that the investigation wouldn't matter, right? Because we, of course, in every case, right, if we launch missiles, every country on the planet that's first world knows for sure we did it, because there's enough tracking, knowledge, spying. Everybody knows what we did and what we didn't do. So in the case of, if Iran tries to blow up their own shit and blame us, there's going to be enough around the world to say, look, this didn't happen. We watched it happen. Here's the intelligence. Here's the video of it, that kind of stuff. So of course it would be an investigation. But again, your point, and you're spot on with this, is that, the deep state, right? That's what we're fighting against. They could launch something like that and blame Iran for it. And, if the investigation wouldn't prove anything otherwise, right? Because again, they're capable of achieving that goal. Well, Iran should never have opened their fucking mouth publicly. They put the target on their own back.
We only have to go back to the Hawaii missile scare, right?
Right.
To see how these things can play out.
Yep.
So it's there. I think we've covered a fair amount of ground. I just have one more question, then I've got one more clip, and then we'll do something a bit more fun just to finish the show off. You've been saying over the last couple of days, not just you, but other people, I see this as a justification, and I want to share some thoughts with you. What's your solution, right? So this has been a retort, okay? So you don't have a solution, okay, to people like me. And I'm going to agree with you. Right. That's true. But first of all, I'm going to say a solution to what exactly? Is the solution to eliminate all the bad guys on planet? Do I have a solution to making sure that no terrorist attacks ever occur again? No. Do I have a solution to the regime in Iran? Well, again, I'll go back, 70, by the way, 70% of the American population agrees with me on this, that it should be focused more on economic sanctions and not military action. Not saying anything about Donald Trump doing military action, just as a general principle. People want economic sanctions. They don't want more military action as a general concept. So I would go that way. But the other thing is, so if we're looking for a solution to stop us getting attacked by terrorists, here's the thing. You don't have one either. Your solution right now is to have people in countries where they can be attacked wait until they get attacked and then missile the people who attack them. That's not a solution. That's just a constant running program of reaction, action, reaction, action, reaction, action, reaction. That doesn't stop anything. It stops that one particular person from doing it again, but it doesn't ensure any long-term safety. It doesn't prevent future terrorist attacks. All the available data we have indicates, if anything, it does the opposite. And I'm not being a bleeding heart here. I'm just trying to put it in like a personal thing. So if I was a 17-year-old kid and my dad got exploded, especially in that part of the world where education isn't necessarily at its highest levels, we know people who have less education are more prone to extremism. That's just a reality, especially in those parts of the world. What we generally accept to be the case is murder begats murder, right? Terrorism begats terrorism, because we create more by wiping that one person out. So I'm not even saying it's the wrong thing to do. We can do that. That's fine. But we have to accept the consequences, the flow-on effect of that. So to demand a solution to this problem of other people who think that this particular action may not have been in our best interest, I think is disingenuous, because what we're doing right now is not a solution either. The reality is nobody has a solution.
I would disagree with you, and I would point to a very famous quote with that and say, walk softly and carry a big stick. That means exactly what you're seeing right now, is with one exception. Donald Trump, not necessarily walking softly, right? He's actually, in my opinion, and most of his solutions to these problems has been to actually get aggressive and tell them, hey, if you fuck around, I'm going to fuck you up. Okay, so that's what it boils down to. And again, I think that's why I think that the strategy of, again, I can put this in personal terms once again, is that if every day you steal my lunch money, right, and I know that's going to happen every day, and one day I grab a fucking 2x4 and crack your fucking head open and give you 16 stitches, you're going to think twice about ever doing it again. You're going to think way twice before you ever do it again, or you may escalate. You may decide, you know what, I really want that lunch money. But now you're actually doing cost-benefit analysis. You're actually going to have to say, okay, now I know that this guy is capable of cracking my fucking head open. So if I really want that lunch money, am I willing to take the possible consequences? So it's cost-benefit analysis that has to occur. That's what's going to happen to this exact scenario, right? Cost-benefit analysis is for Iran. Okay, Donald Trump's proved he'll assassinate one of us. The other countries around the world are saying, Donald Trump's proven he'll take one of us out. If we fuck around, he will do it. So now they have to do a cost-benefit analysis. Is it worth going on this world stage and saying, we're going to do X or we're going to do Z, or actually doing X or Z, because we don't know what the hell he'll do? So that's where you do actually decrease forms of aggression by making people do cost-benefit analysis.
Okay. And the clip I'm going to show you is from MSNBC, and actually I have to show it to you, not to laugh, pardon me, not to laugh, but to actually say, hey, this might be the most reasonable guy on corporate media right now, the guy we're about to see, retired Army general. But I just want to say one thing to that. If that were true in all, like, so if the premise is doing this is a solution, then the current situation wouldn't have happened. Because like you've pointed out, based on past experiences, based on what he did with China and launching missiles into Syria, you say he's proven time and time again, if you punch him in the face, he's going to flatten you, right? So if that were true, that it was a solution to stopping future attacks, then the attack on the embassy doesn't happen. The fact that the attack on the embassy happened proves that it doesn't necessarily equate to fuck around and find out, doesn't necessarily equate to preventing future incidents from occurring. There's always going to be someone who's willing to take the risk. There's always going to be someone who's going to punch you in the face. To put anything forward as a solution, I think, is a false pretense. Well, and that's why I think it's disingenuous to ask other people for solutions when the thing that we're doing now is by definition not a solution. It's a reaction. It's reactionary stuff. And that's okay, but we just have to admit what it is.
Yeah, I can see that in the simple terms. I mean, but again, strategy, it's like playing chess with someone in strategy, right? Neither one of you necessarily know who's going to win until someone finally gets you in a position that's going to win, right? And so
I always know I'm going to win.
Yeah. So it's the same exact situation here, right? Is that why did Iran feel that they could get away with it? Because they've been getting away with it since fucking Jimmy Carter let them take over the country. And every president since then has allowed them to rattle their saber and get away with it. Every fucking thing they've done. So in experience, again, they're the bully that's robbed the lunch money every day. They've gotten away with it for fucking 50 years. This is the first time someone's fucking cracked their head open and given them 12 stitches. That's now they have to reevaluate. They thought they were untouchable because of their relationships with Russia and China. Right? We got some big dogs in our corner. They're like the mouthy, short little fucker that's out in front of you talking all the shit to 14 people when it's only you and him. Okay? That's who Iran is. Iran's the little mouthy motherfucker out front trying to stir up some shit. You're the guy in the back going, what the fuck? Shut the fuck up, you idiot.
Every time we go out.
Yeah.
He has to do this.
Yeah, every time he fucking gets 2 shots in him, the next thing I know, I'm in a fucking bar fight with 14 motherfuckers. Right? That's exactly Iran's position right there. Is that, so they've been getting away with it forever, and now somebody's bloodied them up. And now they're reevaluating everything. Right? Oh shit. Donald Trump's not scared of Russia. Donald Trump's not scared of China. And Donald Trump damn sure ain't scared of us. Now what? All they've known is bluster for the last 50 years and getting away with everything. Now they know. They are in right now cost-benefit analysis mode. Because now they know for sure that now it will directly tie into them, that Donald Trump will bloody them the fuck up.
And I think the interesting thing is when it comes to whether we like it or not, here's another reality. The interesting part for me is people in that part of the world are telling their children the exact same thing about us. Like it or not, rightly or wrongly. And that's why I told the story before of the good Sir James Douglas. You know, on one side of the border, he's a national hero, a liberator, a protector, a brave knight, a brave warrior. On the other side of the border, he's a terrorist and a savage who beheads people and lets women and children starve to death in the winter. Mm-hmm. And the only difference between the two perceptions is about, being 6 inches either side of Hadrian's Wall. You know what I mean? So this is like we can, we're on this side and that's the way it is and that's the way it should be. And we like our side and we're going to defend our side to the hilt. And we want our side to come out on top in any kind of conflict because it's our side, it's our team. But it doesn't mean that on the other side that they're, Darth Vader and the Emperor necessarily, there's people on the other side saying that America and the West have been bullying us for too long. It's about time we stand up. This is just the reality. So whether we like it or not, obviously that doesn't mean I'm going over there and fighting for the bad guys, but it does mean that, what we think separates us so often brings us, aligns our interests in ways that we don't necessarily take time to recognize, I think, in moments like this. And that's a danger. I do want to show you this guy. Sorry, go ahead.
Hang on, before we move forward, because I know we're almost to the end here. We're going to do like one story and then some fun stuff. So I just want to make this clear for all of my audience and all of our audience and all of Boogie's audience. What you have seen tonight is intellectual honesty. Okay, this is debating. I want you to understand something about Boogie. I promise you, no matter what you think, you don't understand what he really thinks. Because I know Boogie very well, and I know how he thinks. It doesn't mean I know what he thinks either. It just means I know how he thinks. And having this debate about the things you need to think about for yourself is more important to him than whether or not you think he's a fucking communist, a terrorist, a fucking traitor. It doesn't matter. The point is to be intellectually honest to yourself. Listen to both sides of arguments. And we can't get a rational lefty ever to give their arguments. So the only way to present them sometimes is for us to take a position we don't necessarily agree with. And you'll hear us say that. I don't necessarily agree with this, but this is the position, right? And make a full-fledged argument, so that you can make your own mind up. Because remember, this show is trust and verify, not believe everything the fucking hosts say.
Yeah, I mean, that's the insulting part to me. If I wanted, people accusing me of being a Democrat or people accusing me of being on the side of terrorism, if I was doing that, I would come up with much better shit to say. Like I would say, death to America. I would play like the ISIS recruiting videos if that's what you wanted. Like, I mean, give me a break here. Do you not give me enough credit to say that if I was a Democrat, I could present a far better case of what I'm doing here? Come on, man. Give me some fucking credit. It's like when people accuse me of being a racist, James. I'm like, really? Over that one joke? I mean, that's the insulting part. I could say much more racist things than that. You were too quick on the trigger.
Yeah. Speaking of jokes, I want to say one thing real quick, because I know there's a lot of people that are lit the fuck up over George Lopez and his fucking tweet with "we'll do it by half." If you're being honest, I understood what he was trying to do. The joke may have fallen flat because it was over the assassination of the President of the United States, and the tempers are very hot. But it was a good and decent joke overall that would have been accepted 40 years ago. That would have been accepted 30 years ago. That would have been accepted when Bill Clinton was the president. These are things that he was making a joke, and it was actually, if you really think through the joke, again, I agree it was a bad joke. He fucked it up. He shouldn't have done it that way. But if you understand even his, infinitesimal little mind, in his way, he was actually being self-deprecating with that joke when he said we'd do it by half, because he was making a racial comparison to how Mexicans will undercut you for your job. Remember? So it really was a deeper
It's a tightrope in the.
Yeah, it's a very tightrope. But the joke fell flat. But don't take it too serious. The guy's a comedian. Okay, yes, he has said some fucking whacked out crazy bullshit he probably shouldn't have said, which is why the joke fell so fucking flat. But just be honest with yourselves about what he was attempting to do there. It was a bad joke. It just fell flat.
Sure. And just if I can just say another reality, not everybody who's against bombing targets in the Middle East is instantaneously a leftist. If you're determined to say that everybody who is against bombing targets in the Middle East is a leftist, then you're going to create enemies of your own people unnecessarily. There are a lot of conservatives. There's a big chunk of the Donald Trump support base that actually wants to, more in my mold of thinking, and literally get out. And if they want to tear each other apart over the next 200 years, then so be it. Let nature take its course. Life finds a way. There is a big chunk of Donald Trump supporters who think that way, and to pretend otherwise, I think, is unfair. And you might say that, if we go to war, everybody's going to be behind the guy. Just remember, George W. Bush barely held on in 2004. And we are a lot more polarized now than we were back then. So, don't necessarily take it to the bank. Don't, as the late, great Christopher Hitchens once said, James, don't find security. Don't find false security. What am I looking for again? Don't find peace in the safety blanket of false consensus or something like that.
Right.
Just because everybody that you're around agrees with you, don't think that you're unstoppable and everybody else will too, essentially.
Yeah, consensus is exactly the point is what he's making, right? It's the exact same argument for climate change, right? Well, scientists have a consensus. Look, consensus has nothing to do with science, okay? It just doesn't. But it's a false security blanket to fall into these consensus type positions. Just because everybody is saying that this is true doesn't make it fucking true. Okay, that's why you have to think for yourself. And I agree with you. George Lopez has fallen off the fucking wagon. He's gone completely batshit insane with all the shit he did. But I don't want us, the MAGA people, to fall into the trap of now nobody can make a fucking joke. Okay? Look, we make jokes constantly on all of our shows. We make them about ourselves and we make them about others. And we need to make sure that we're being honest with ourselves. In this one case, yeah, he's still an asshole. Yeah, he's still a prick. But in this one case, okay, I can see the joke. Now, again, if you have to explain the joke, it's not fucking funny. And I literally had to just explain the fucking joke.
Yeah, and I put out a tweet. Here's one more thing we can probably agree on before we get to this clip. I put out a tweet a couple of days ago. I think you retweeted it, James. Just because somebody is against this missile strike does not mean they're on the side of terrorists.
Yeah.
And just because somebody agrees with the missile strike doesn't mean that they're trying to start World War III.
Yeah.
And so when we turn it into a binary option and we strip all of the nuance and discussion out of it, that's a problem. That's the problem. Right. And I'm sorry, but being part of the free world and a defender of the free world and a defender of the Western culture means that I am going to question things. And if you come at me and say that I have to shut up, be on your side, have no information, not ask any questions, and just wave a flag and push a button, I'm going to tell you, even though I like you and I'm on your side, I'm going to tell you to go fuck yourself. And that's going to make me not want to join your side, being told that I have no choice to join your side. Otherwise, you're going to call me a terrorist and a communist. I'm going to say, well, fucking call me a terrorist then, because fuck you. That's why. Exactly. Because that's how I roll.
Exactly. And that, by the way, is a very American thing to say. Fuck you because.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, by the way, if you missed it, Ricky Gervais was funny as fuck tonight in his opening monologue, right? Called the Hollywood motherfuckers out right to their faces and said, fuck you. Don't get up here and whine about politics. Shut the fuck up. You don't live in the real world. I thought it was fucking fantastic. You got to watch
he's giving them advice, free advice.
Yeah.
They'll be too stupid to take it, though, which is why we love them. Which is why we love them. They're predictable. I do have to show you this, James. because yes, most of this show is about attacking the corporate media, but we do have to give credit where credit is due. To be honest, I'd never heard of this guy before I saw this interview, but I think more of this on, like we were talking about before, wagging the dog, right? On the corporate news right now wants us to be bloodthirsty imperialist maniacs, likely so they can accuse us of being bloodthirsty imperialist maniacs 6 months from now when we're closer to the election. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, go to war, go to war, go to war. And then they'll start running ads. Donald Trump is a warmonger. We never wanted to go to war. So, don't think for a second that that's not taking place here. But I want to give a tip of the hat to this guy, this retired Army general, who was on MSNBC and, diffusing a lot of their bullshit in a very cold and calculated and calm way, which you would expect of an Army general, right? To just give you the facts. And I think more of this is needed in the conversation more broadly in the corporate media.
You heard that report from Ali Arouzi in Tehran saying it seems his expectation from what he's picking up over there is not just a response, but I think he said a strong response from Iran. Do you think that is what's likely to happen here? What might a strong response look like? And I think the third part of the question, not to make this too complicated, is does the degree of what the United States just did, which I think surprised everybody, including apparently Iranians, does that raise the possibility at all that Iran might think twice before launching a strong response?
Well, yeah, the last part is very interesting because Iran has been pushing the envelope quite substantially since Trump took office. Admittedly, at least partially because Trump started off his administration by...
Sorry, I have to correct myself. He's not a retired general. He's a retired colonel.
Talking about how we were going to withdraw from the world stage. We're going to be isolationists. We had no business being in the Middle East and so on. And so they started to push the envelope properly to achieve what their longer-term objectives were in the Middle East, to influence...
Now, see, this is an argument that I've made before, and this is an argument that people throw at me, James. By withdrawing, by saying that you're going to withdraw, you are encouraging other people to fill that space, right?
Right.
Okay, nobody's denying that. My point has always been, though, yes, but if you're saying that you're going to get out, at some point you're going to have to let that happen. Right. Because getting out means you can't be two things at the same. You can't be both in and out. So if we, people say, well, if we remember the Democrats with the Kurds, we're abandoning the Kurds. We're leaving the Kurds behind. How can we do this to the poor Kurds? And my point back then was the same as it is now. Yes, there's always going to be reasons to stay. There's always going to be something that needs to be protected. There's always going to be an ally that we leave behind. There's always going to be a battle just around the corner in that part of the world because that's what happens in that part of the world. But the point is, if not now, then when? If not now, then when is a good time? If there's always going to be a circumstance to stay, when is a good time to leave? That's my general broad point here, right? We accept that there's going to be people trying to fill the space. We accept that it's going to cause, consequences down the line. But if not now, then when, right? I think that's a fair question to ask. And it seems more and more, at least now people are being a little more honest and saying, well, potentially never. I'm like, good, then don't tell me when next time. Just say that instead.
Right. It more clearly and so on. The trouble is that they didn't expect a disproportionate response from their attacks. Now they do have to think a little bit more clearly about what happens next. They're going to attack, there's no doubt about it, and they can take lots of different forms. A cyber attack, for example, many cyber attacks, they're pretty good at it, and we're not very good at defending against them. Attacks on our locations in the Middle East, allied locations, and all the rest of that. But they've got to be very, very careful because the administration has already demonstrated a disproportionate response, and they don't want to engender a disproportionate response from anything that they do. So I think you are going to see attacks, and you are going to see them probably from their allies, from their proxies, and so on. You know, the Iranian ambassador to the United Nations today said, hey, something's going to happen, but it has nothing to do with us. Plausible deniability and so on. There is something in the offing, probably several attacks. harassment of ships in the straits and so on and so forth. But it's probably going to be a while before they do it because they got to figure out, they have to do the calculus to figure out what the result is.
Here's the other question, too, and Ali mentioned this. The Quds forces, which Soleimani was in charge of, the Iranian forces, as well as this network of sort of loosely affiliated Iranian-backed militias, taking him out of the picture. Somebody else has now been installed. Is this an interchangeable part here? Can you just throw somebody else in and the whole operation keeps going? Or have Iran's capabilities here been, for a period, diminished?
Well, in most circumstances and in most armies, there is great interchangeability, and it almost doesn't matter who you have as the head because he's going to rotate out in 2 or 3 years, in any case to be replaced by somebody else. This is a very much different situation. Don't forget that Soleimani's been there for a long, long time, in excess of 20 years. His deputy, who is now taking his place, Ghani, he's been with him. He had been with him for a long, long time, but he's no Soleimani. You can expect that although Soleimani was on a long, long leash, he was a semi-independent operator, could more or less do whatever he wanted outside Iran. Ghani is not going to be that guy. He's going to be on a very short leash.
I think that is probably the most reasonable, objective analysis of the situation that I've seen on the corporate press all weekend from that retired colonel. He wasn't beating the war drums, but he was stating the reality that some kind of retaliation is probably likely because that's what these people do. It doesn't mean that they're going to come in and bomb an embassy waving Iranian flags. In fact, they're probably going to do the opposite and retaliate without taking credit for it. But they don't know what the reaction's going to be because of what Donald Trump did. I think he's basically agreed with both of us and hit every single point right on the head and been like, you know, that was just real. That was just a reality download, I think, on MSNBC. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. He even made the points I made yesterday with how this is, people are not understanding that what's going on inside Iran is completely different than just, oh, there's another guy they're going to plug into this role. He even made that point. But I would take exception to two things he said, and I have supporting evidence for that. Number one is that, well, actually, one of them's not even an exception to what he said. The first point that I would make is that our cyber guys are much better than he kind of stated there. And I know this evidentiarily, as well as from Mike Pompeo himself, just stating, look, Iran has direct access to their own servers. Everybody would agree to that, right? Because they're in the fucking country. And yet, our guys are still hacking the fuck out of them enough to open all of the ports so that the Iranian citizens' videos and texts and tweets can get the fuck out of the country. And Mike Pompeo said that himself on national television. Look, we're not letting them close down the internet. Iran keeps trying to close down the internet from its people. We're keeping the shit open. Like he literally,
that's our job. We'll close down the internet, damn it.
He literally said that they're keeping it open for the Iranian people. So that's one exception. But the other thing I would say is that here's one of the things that he did say, but it's not being talked about at all. So there's no expounding upon it. What Donald Trump has done in this instance alone is he has put the world on notice that you will not fuck around with the United States by proxy. This is a fact. If you can't see that fact yet, you haven't looked deep enough yet. Because he is literally saying, we don't give a shit. Hezbollah is responsibility of Iran. We know it. We're not going to let you play games through proxies. We're just not going to let you do it. That's why we took out the command and control structure of both of them, Iran and Hezbollah. This is the thing nobody's talking about. What is it? 6 or 7 other people died too. And those 6 or 7 other people that died were related to Hezbollah. Okay? They were related to literal terrorist organizations. So he has put the world on notice that we're not going to play the games like our past politicians, right? The past politicians lie to themselves and lie to you. When it's like, well, it's Hezbollah that did it. Everybody in the past would say, oh no, we know Iran did it. We can watch the money trail. We can watch Iran fund Hezbollah. We can watch Iran send these missiles to Hezbollah. But the rockets going into Gaza are from Hezbollah. They're not from Iran. That's a political hogwash game. If I fucking send Boogie a fucking missile and tell him to blow up a fucking building, I'm still the guy behind the trigger. It's just like any other scenario. Donald Trump's put them all on notice that we're not going to let you play proxy war game anymore. We're going to kick your fucking ass if we know you're behind it.
And here's another occasion where I'm going to get accused of being a terrorist sympathizer, James. Just on the Black Douglas story, right? The good Sir James Douglas. There are parts of the world in the Middle East where Hezbollah are hailed as heroes.
Right.
And in some of those parts, James, there are people in Hezbollah who are Christians, right? You know, around Israel, Hezbollah is around 30% Christian. A lot of people don't want to acknowledge this.
Right.
But in that part of the world, fundamentalist Muslims and fundamentalist Christians actually work together against Israel, believe it or not.
Right. All while hating each other.
Right. But, you know, for example, Hezbollah turned back ISIS when they were coming into their lands long before any United States Army bombing raid did. Like, long before anybody helped them, ISIS was terrified of Hezbollah because they were fucking brutal. There's one particular Hezbollah fighter, again, a Christian guy from Syria, who was being heralded. His picture is up in towns because he killed like 50 ISIS fighters or something like that. You should see the guy. He's like he's built like a refrigerator. He's huge. His mode of dispatch was using an axe. He wanted to hack them to death. So, you know, I do get my eye starts twitching when people call Hezbollah a jihadist organization, because that's plainly, objectively not true. They are a nationalist organization. They are a nationalist militia. And people would argue the reason that Hezbollah is in Iraq in the first place is because they are trying to make ground off the growing nationalist fervor in Iraq right now, which, again, some people want to say isn't really happening. But I would say if there wasn't a growing nationalist movement in Iraq, it's unlikely that Hezbollah would be trying to recruit people there. So, you know, it is what it is. I'm not saying that, yay, Hezbollah, but again, you know, on one side of the border versus the other side of the border, it can be a very different story indeed. One more quick clip for you, James, to wrap up the show. Do you trust Trey Gowdy's judgment?
No.
No, not at all.
No, he's a chihuahua. I've always said it, and I'll consistently say it. Trey Gowdy has always been about Trey Gowdy, and he's a fucking chihuahua. He's a prosecutor.
Do you respect his legal mind?
Yes, he's a good lawyer.
Okay. I want to play you this. This is probably going to look like a little sideways swipe at you, but I think you'll handle it. Based on Rudy Giuliani's comments the other day. Now, you and I, we came together on this because you said, oh, look, Rudy, he's going to prosecute RICO. And I made the point to you in the chat, which you addressed. He said, I would prosecute it. He didn't say, I am prosecuting it.
Right.
Which some people might say, well, what's the difference? And I say, well, there's a big fucking difference. Like, there's a big difference to say, I would jump off a bridge, or I am jumping off a bridge. One is going to bring the ambulance to the bridge. The other is going to make a lot of people go, yeah, right, Boogie, and roll their eyes. Like, it's two totally different things.
Yeah.
To say, look, I'm going to stay and be an advisor on the outside, not the inside.
Well, the president's got a really good lawyer in Pat Cipollone. He's a fantastic lawyer. There is a political component to this, and I am a huge John Ratcliffe fan. In addition to being an incredible courtroom lawyer, John was the United States Attorney in Texas. He also understands the politics. He's on Judiciary and House Intel, so he's watched Schiff and Nadler. He's conducted the depositions. He's defended depositions. If there needs to be someone with a political background to understand the chronology and the process, Ratcliffe would be fantastic, but the president would win if the vote was today. And I don't like surprises. I don't like witnesses that I don't know what they're going to say. If the vote were today, the president would win. So my advice to him is go with the defense team you got now, Cipollone, Ratcliffe, Pam Bondi, Jay Sekulow, and then get to the vote as quickly as possible. Don't inject any surprises or witnesses that you don't know what they're going to say. It's just not good in a trial for there to be a lot of surprises.
A name you did not mention in that group is Rudy Giuliani. He was at Mar-a-Lago on New Year's Eve for the big bash. Here's what he said.
I would testify, I would do demonstrations, I'd give lectures, I'd give summations, or I do what I do best. I try.
See, I love the glasses, taking off the glasses move. Just I had to point that out.
I would testify. I would do demonstrations. I'd give lectures. I'd give summations. Or I do what I do best. I try the case. I'd love to try the case.
Look at the eyes.
What do you
I
make of
pointed
that?
this out before. Look at the eyes.
Rudy's a really smart guy. You don't get to be the U.S. Attorney in the Southern District of New York without being smart. You can't be a witness and try the case.
He's right.
Yeah, he is
You
right.
can't be a witness and try the case at the
That's
same
right.
time.
That's right.
So would Rudy Giuliani have to choose between being a witness and trying the case, James?
That would be a very touchy thing, to be honest with you. I'm trying to think about this from a legal point of view. Is just purely from the legal point of view. I think that Trey Gowdy makes a valid point that I don't think Rudy can necessarily try the case for the government. That's not to say that Rudy cannot bring a civil RICO case, because then you would get down to the situation where the judge would have to decide whether the lawyer of the case had evidentiary value to bring, because you know for a fact that the opposing side is going to try to call Rudy as a witness. You just know that's a fact. So, it could get sticky there. So, but it is possible, definitely possible that he could still pursue the RICO case himself. But again, I agree that it's not necessarily likely that Rudy himself is going to bring the case, but Rudy will put all of the ducks in a row, right? That's what he's been doing. That's what he's continued to do. He can definitely grandfather the case, and then leave himself open to be called as a witness. So it's absolutely possible. He can be a co-counsel, because you can get a co-counsel called as a witness, things like that. So yeah, we'll see where that goes. But again, I don't fucking like Trey Gowdy anyways.
On that note, I think it's a good place to wrap it up. No hammering tonight. We've been hammering each other for 2 hours, so I think that's a good enough hammering. And so if I can just say, I hope if you're out there in the audience, you got something out of this. And I hope what you got out of it is more than I'm a communist terrorist sympathizer or James is a bloodthirsty tyrant. And I think if that's where you ended up after 2 hours of open, conversation and intellectual humility, disagreeing with points, bringing arguments, bringing facts, agreeing with points, agreeing with arguments when they were there to be agreed upon. If that's where you get at the end of it, well, you're just a Democrat or you're just a warmonger, then I'm afraid this show wasn't for you tonight. But don't worry. We'll be back to just laughing and pointing at dumb Democrats next week if that's your particular flavor. I know I'm hoping, I'm doing Daily Boogie. You can see it up on the screen there Monday through Wednesday. I'm hoping actually tomorrow to just kind of wipe this whole weekend's news cycle and just get back to some more traditional good fun stuff. But we'll see how that goes. I don't know. There might be another bombing. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see what happens to that. But it was an absolute pleasure to have this discussion with you, James. And yes, we're still going to be friends after this. We're still going to be friends.
Yes, we will be back next week. We will try to figure out something else to argue and fight about, just so that we can entertain all of you. We'll see where it goes. But thanks for being here. I hope you did get something out of it, even if it's just to hate me. I'm fine with that. So I love you guys. You guys are awesome. Thanks for being here. If you want to follow him, you can follow him at Boogie Bumper. If you want to follow me, you can follow me at Real Person PLTCS. If you want to follow us, you can follow us on at Tav Show. And I'm going to screw this up. I normally get out of here by now, but D Live, follow us in the same handles, all three of those, over on D Live.
Oh, yes. And I need to open the chest.
Yes. Boogie will open the chest. Thanks for all of the lemons that you guys do give us. And if you don't like throwing fruit at us, well, fuck you too. No, I'm just kidding. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week. Aloha.
I got it from my daddy. 낮이는 잠만자 밤이 오면 상남자 널 보자마자 나 너무 좋아서 아기가 보면 let me down 신나면 너리 let me down 오빠가 깜빡이 아기고 흔들어 get me down Hold up, wait a minute 지금부터 선수끼리
Where'd you get that body from? Where'd you get that body from? Where'd you get that body from?
I got it from my daddy. I got it from my daddy. I got it.
Hey, where'd you get that body from?
I got it from my daddy. I got it from my daddy. I got it.
Hey, where'd you get that body from?
I got it from my dad. Daddy. I got it from my dad. Daddy. Listen, my papa was a Superman. Hey, 그대로 받아왔어, come on man. Hey, 신사 이길 거부하는 신사. 이 구역에 미친놈은 바로 나. Hey, I got it from my dad. Daddy, I got it from my dad. Daddy, I got it from my dad.
Look, it's hard being a Democrat. You gotta make tough decisions like, do I vote for a socialist who'll destroy the economy, or do I vote for a socialist who's totally insane and who'll destroy the economy? Well, for the rest of us, here's an easy one. Donald Trump. It's a fact. In Trump's America, more people are getting a paycheck than ever before. 6 million new jobs in 3 years. That's one new job every 12 seconds, 250 an hour, and $3 billion in value every day. No wonder the guy's filling stadiums. Trump ain't raising the bar, he is the bar. It's payday. Keep America great. Stand with Trump in 2020.